Cardinals tonight, Steven Matz versus Merrill Kelly. Merrill Kelly coming off the IL, so I'm sure he'll be fine. But, the first time back, you never know. He's a really good pitcher. And the Cardinals last night, much credit for the win. I mean, they deserve some credit. That offense just didn't matter. I mean, that offense would not get down. They would not stay down. They just kept rising up. After the bullpen blew a lead that Adam Wainwright had provided him, and he pitched very well relative to expectations. Another bullpen blow-up could have ruined the whole night, but at least the Cardinals got a win because the offense erupted for 5 runs in the top of the ninth, and that was one of their better offensive performances of the season, simply because they have 11 hits, they had a bunch of walks. They only struck out 3 times. I mean, it was really, really good. Plus, they did a good job with runners on base, runners in scoring position. So that was a nice win for the Cardinals. And again, I'm not going to view every game that they play through the prism of the standings. We know that they're a mile out. So I'm not going to do the Bally Sports Midwest thing. They got 61 games to go. I'm not going to do that, okay? My policy is it remains in place. Y'all win 10 in a row. You win 13 out of 15. You get to within like 5 games. Okay, we'll talk. Until then, shut up. I don't want to hear it. But we will talk about how the team performs, good, bad, or otherwise, and we will talk about news and notes and developments and trends. And that part is fun, whether the team's bad or good. And I think this is a very interesting time to be a Cardinals fan, an interesting time if you're a member of the organization in the baseball operations, because the expectations are rising in advance of the trade deadline, which is a week from today at 5:30 p.m. St. Louis time. And the more people talk about this, the more it's obvious to me that the expectations are getting a little crazy. And I've got some information to offer on that, because The Athletic did a really good piece today where they went back and they looked at relevant trades in recent years for players in the final year of their contracts, walk-year players, where you're just going to rent them for a couple of months, and what did teams get in return.
Nice.
And let me just say this. I read this, and Tim Britton did a good job. And he was trying to find the closest matches for like different pending free agents, like Montgomery, Flaherty, Hicks,
Gotcha.
And I'm the guy that's been telling everyone, hey, keep the expectations in check. Just keep it in check.
I get that.
You're not going to get Logan Gilbert, okay? And let's shut up about that. Seattle's got no reason to trade him. But someone who's even been saying, just keep the expectations in check. You don't want to be too disappointed. I read the list of comps that, as it relates to the Cardinals guys that they could be trading, and I was like, wow. Wow.
Pretty rough, huh?
Yeah. I mean,
qualifying offers looking much better?
I don't know. I'm just saying, it's just like we'll get into it. I'll find it and we'll go through it. But it's like, really? Is that all there is?
It's a shame.
If in fact, the same standards apply. But Joe Sheehan warned us about that. It's changed dramatically in recent seasons. So that said, there's a lot of teams in the buyer category. There's a lot of teams that seem to need pitching. There's also a lot of teams that we think are buyers that will be probably more conservative than we anticipate. The Baltimore Orioles are such a team. You look at Tampa Bay, they're a smart organization. They see a team that's got a really bad record over the last month. I don't know that they're going to mortgage part of their future to go big at the trade deadline. Maybe they will. The Arizona Diamondbacks, which I didn't realize, like the last 30 games or something, I could check this out. They're like 7-8 games under 500.
They haven't played well. You're right.
I know they're, they're in contention. Are they really, though? I don't know that they are.
They're trending the other way.
They're trending in a bad way. So I said this yesterday on the show a little bit. We see buyers. They're not necessarily buyers. We see sellers. Most are, but some maybe not as much as you think. And that sort of adds to the not confusion, but not knowing how to frame these discussions, because people assume things that aren't true. People expect more when it's their team trading a guy they expect a lot more than what is reality-based in terms of the return. And, it's just I'll be really happy a week from today. That's all I'll say.
We will have our answers, that's for sure.
We will. And then, of course, it's a 5:30 deadline, but we'll be on the air at 6. But if it's one of the New York teams or maybe Boston, L.A. or whatever, their deadline's usually about 8 o'clock. I don't think
this just came in.
I don't think the deadline applies to all teams equally.
That is true.
You know what I mean? Seriously, I hate to be that guy.
Fax machine got jammed, and there it is. It just took us a while to process. And here at 7 o'clock, we are announcing the Red Sox have made this deal.
Yeah, exactly. No, I got to joke about something. So that's the deal on just kind of setting the table today a little bit. Katie Wu had an interesting story in The Athletic. A curious story, good reporting. I trust her sources. Covering the team in Arizona reports that the Cardinals are planning to hold on to Tyler O'Neill. Now, there is a caveat, and she's not doing this to cover herself. I actually believe this to be true. The caveat is unless a team really makes them the kind of offer that they're like, oh, well, okay now, okay. Mm-hmm. But why would anybody be surprised? I don't think any of us are. Why would anybody be surprised who's followed the Tyler O'Neill saga that whatever the Cardinals are hearing in terms of other teams, they're probably like, no, we're not. We're not going to give them to you for like a couple of Taylor Swift concert tickets. It's got to be, I know those are in demand, but it's got to be a lot better than that,
Yes, I agree.
And I've said all along, my philosophy on this is don't give anybody away. You don't have to. You just simply don't have to, because you know why? Rather than taking trash for someone that might have some value later on, and you have a whole off season to work with, and Tyler O'Neill is under your contract control through 2024, and I'm not saying, oh, yeah, he's going to be great. This is smart. I'm not saying that at all. There's just no reason to give him away. There's no reason at all to give him away, because he still could become an asset. If not, it's just a matter of how much of an asset, but they have time on their side in that regard. So if that is their philosophy, look, we're just not putting him – I'm going to use one of my regular metaphors. We're not going to put him out in the alley for a pickup. If you want him, you're going to have to give us something that interests us. And I'm sure the Cardinals are under control when it comes to that. I don't think they're being unreasonable. However, again, when a guy does have whoever it is, a pitcher, whatever, when a guy has another year remaining, the team that's interested – they like that because obviously it's not a deal where you're giving something up for a 2-month rental, So now, on the other hand, I have to say, are the Cardinals are willing to go through this another year?
That's exactly it.
But but let me tell you something. That is an entirely separate issue of whether they should trade him. It isn't trading him. The question is whether they should just give him away, and they shouldn't. If there's interest, because people are obviously calling, it's just they think they can get him for nothing. Cardinals shouldn't do that. Got a year left with him. The value could go up. So this thing is all on our nerves, but you know what? That doesn't matter about what they should do. What I think or whether this has been on my nerves, it's completely irrelevant. You have to manage your assets, and this is a very, very critical time for the Cardinals in that regard. They can't screw up. Just imagine, and this is hardly a long shot, beyond belief scenario. Just imagine if they give him away for junk, and he goes to wherever, and he tears it up over 2 months, and then he goes in the next season, and he's hitting home runs left or You realize the abuse that front office would take for that? Now, some people say, well, they waited long enough. Okay, did they? He's under contract control the next season. Again, I ain't defending Tyler O'Neill. I'm not predicting anything positive. But they have given away so many outfielders for junk that what's the point of doing it again when you don't have to do that right now? That's the point. You do not have to do that right now. If you're getting a minimal offer for him, that minimal offer will still be there in the offseason. It'll be there early next season. If they're offering you dirt, you don't have to take dirt because the dirt will still be there at the end of this campaign and going into the winter. So I understand where they're coming from, but again, it's hard for people to process because they're so ticked off at Tyler O'Neill, and they're like me, they're just burned out on this every single year, and it just never seems to end. Well, it's going to end after 2024, one way or the other, and I gather it'll end before then.
The one thing about him, and I've always felt this way, Bernie, with his situation, especially this past offseason until now, the Cardinals have a value for what they think they should get and kind of what we're talking about. And if they're not getting it, they're just going to sit on it and go, yep, that's fine. We'll deal with the aggravation of him not being in the lineup. And right now, my guess is when they're getting calls about this, they are getting the response of, well, we have a Zach Thompson, JoJo Romero type that you could maybe, work with in exchange for anything. You go, well, we'll hold on to him another year and see what we can get. I'm just talking about a comparable, but I don't, this fantasy land, like you said, of people thinking, well, we're going to get this AAA starter that's going to be third in our rotation next year for O'Neill. No, that's not going to happen. Unless somebody just goes off the cliff.
I'll give you an example, and again, I hate to pick on one example because it doesn't necessarily represent it doesn't represent the majority opinion. But I'll tell you how ridiculous it is. I was listening to a national show where a caller who was a Cardinals fan said, I'm reading that the Rangers need, I've heard obviously everyone's saying the Rangers they're one starting pitcher short at least. And they're in the market for a starter. Look, if you trade them Jordan Montgomery, and you can get a Jack Leader, and I'm like,
come on, yeah, I love it, but come on.
I'm like, my goodness, wake up, right?
Yes.
One of the first picks in the draft. What was it, last year?
Yes.
And a guy that the Rangers are really excited about, it's like, oh yeah, they're going to give you Jack Leader for a 2-month rental, no problem.
Can you throw something else in there?
So oh my goodness, I don't know what to say about it. I really don't know what to say. One thing, because we don't have to take a break just yet. One thing I feel obligated to say, and yeah, it is obligated because the Cardinals have a lot of problems, as we know. There's been a lot of things that have gone wrong, and most of it is at the root of the front office neglect. And we know it's, other than the defense, which is really bad, but the defense goes hand in hand with the pitching. Their run prevention is awful, but the starting pitching's awful. The bullpen's turned awful. But I got to say, at times like this where I spend a lot of time, talking and writing about Cardinals screwed this up. They're not good here. They're bad here. Front office messed this up. Front office ought to be ashamed, blah, blah. And all that stuff is true. I'm not saying I'm taking any of it back. This team's got a really good offense. And frankly, I don't think it's appreciated as much as it should be. I was reading my friend Ben Fredrickson's chat the other day. And somebody was kvetching, whining about something to do with the offense. And Ben, to his credit, said, wait a minute, with this pitching staff and this bullpen and the way they're playing deep, your complaint is about the offense? Really? And that's not the reason why I'm saying this, but I'm not sure why they're not appreciated as much as they should be. Do you like having a top 7? Let's just put it this way: do you like having a top 7, top 6 offense in the majors? There's 30 teams, I think that's good. Call me a homer. I think that's good. I think it's really good. And yet you just. If Alec Burleson's in the lineup, people have strokes. I mean, if somebody's batting 6th that they don't like, it's the end of the world and everyone should be fired. The offense is working, fellas and ladies. It's working. Now, people will zero in on, they went through that stretch where they averaged just less than 3 runs a game. Yeah, Every team goes through that, right?
Yes, they do.
Every team goes through that. So don't always isolate like this. When something bad goes wrong, or something goes wrong with the Cardinals offense, don't look at it and act like this is the only place in Major League Baseball where a team goes through a slump and they're cold for a while. It's called 162 games. There are fluctuations. The best you can do is don't let the fluctuations drive you crazy. Like when the offense is really, really good, they ain't the 27 Yankees. When it's really, really bad, they're not the 62 Mets, okay? You look at where they are at a certain point in the season where we have enough in front of us where the sample size is totally cool. And here's where the Cardinals are. They're second in hard hit rate. They're second in average exit velocity. They got the fourth best on-base percentage, which is the lifeblood of any offense. With runners in scoring position, they're the fifth best team in the majors. In OPS plus, they're number 6 in the majors. In weighted runs created plus, they're number 6 in the majors. Batting average, they're number 7. Slugging percentage, they're number 7. OPS, number 7. Home runs per game, number 7. Out of 30, I remind you. Isolated power, number 7. They got the 8th best walk rate. They're 8th in offensive wins above replacement. They're 9th in barrel rate, and they've got the 10th lowest strikeout rate. So would you kindly explain to me what's wrong with that offense? Like why this is something that should not be praised? You know, it's okay to hate on your team when you're fed up with them, when you're fed up with the owner, the general manager, the president of baseball operations. It's totally cool to be mad at the world, so to speak. Do not put the blame on this offense, because if the pitching staff and the defense was even half this good, the Cardinals would be in postseason contention right now. Run prevention is the issue. When you rank 10th in runs per game scored and you're 25th in runs allowed per game, what do you think the damn problem is? Do you need to be Branch Rickey to understand it? I wouldn't think so, but sometimes I just don't know.
You needed to score multiple times after having a 5-2 lead last night because you couldn't save. You had to at least score 7 just to stay in the game on Sunday, and it goes on and on and on. We can go around the merry-go-round. The pitching's not good enough, and they leave too many runs. It's not the offense.
Right. No, but I think it's time to really – they got 8 guys, by the way, that are above average according to when I say weighted runs created plus, it's the same thing. It's a little different, but it's basically the same thing as OPS plus. Cardinals got 8 above average hitters. Dare I suggest that's a pretty deep offense?
It's pretty darn good. Well, number 7 overall out of 30 is still worthy of getting you into playoffs. By any stretch of the imagination.
You know, this offense with the numbers they're putting up this year, they've outperformed the offenses by Cardinals teams of the past, recent and otherwise, that were, in fact, postseason teams. This offense is better in terms of, it's always adjusted for the league conditions and for ballpark effects and all that. This offense is better, we're talking regular season, than the 2011 Cardinals offense, But the 2011 Cardinals could also pitch, and they had a manager. So, I mean, it's just a little different situation. But this offense has done really, really well. And I just think it's time to give them some credit and just sort of separate them from all the things. I think that's a reasonable thing, to separate this offense from all the things that make you really mad about Cardinals baseball in 2023. Is that reasonable? Text us. But I'm just telling you, I don't want to hear about, there was that stretch in May where for 2 weeks, they didn't hit much. Yeah. Okay. You got anything else? So anyway, sorry.
It's all right.
I mentioned how the Cardinals offense is really, really good and deserves praise and be separated from all the stuff that's not going well. And I mentioned they have 8 hitters above average. Based on, park-adjusted, league-adjusted runs created, which is another way to say OPS plus. Paul Goldschmidt's 33% above average. Arenado's 32% above average. Donovan's 24% above average. Gorman's 21% above average. Jordan Walker is 17% above average. Contreras, 15% above average. Newt Bar is 15% above average. And Paul DeJong, barely above average, but 2% above average nonetheless. That's pretty good, 8 guys. And I was also doing, I'm not going to read numbers because I've already read enough of them, but the Cardinals also have a situation where they the bottom part of their lineup, like the bottom 3 spots in their order, collectively done very, very well. So, they really do go top to bottom in pretty good shape. They really do. The other thing is that they're in the top 10 for, weighted runs created plus. They're in the top 10. In fact, they rank 6th. Among the top 10 teams in Major League Baseball in this category, 7 would be in the playoffs or tied for a wild card spot if the season had ended Monday. As for the other 3, currently would be in the wild card pool. The Angels are 4.5 out. The Padres are 6 out. The Cardinals are 9 out. So, in other words, what I'm saying is there is no question this is a postseason worthy offense.
Oh, without a doubt.
But when you can't pitch or stop anyone, you don't catch the ball with reliability. It's hard because they give games away. Games where the Cardinals score 5+ runs, their winning percentage is about 60 points less than what the overall major league winning percentage is, maybe 50 points less, because they don't. Around Major League Baseball, a lot of teams you put 5+ on the board. You're going to have a phenomenal winning percentage. The Cardinals is a strong winning percentage when they do it, but it's not close to the major league average. And it just shows you that so many games have gotten away that they should have put in the loss or in the win column. They have 23 blown saves, tied for the White Sox with the most in the majors. They got a good chance. I don't think they want this, but the major league record for most blown saves in a season is like 36. And they're moving in on that. I think it was the Nationals, but I forget the year. I wrote it down, but I don't have it in front of me.
That's it makes you go, yuck. Right?
So many blown leads, so many blown saves last night. And Gallegos, of course, last night, blown save. He's had 13 save opportunities, and 5 of them have resulted in a blown save this year, Gallegos. And over the last several, the last 10 appearances or so, his ERA is well over 5. Last night was kind of typical of how it's gone for him. Like I've mentioned so many times, I have the utmost respect for him. He's been worked hard. He pitches all the time. He just doesn't have the stuff that he once had. And I wonder how he figures in. We talk about the trade deadline. I wonder how he figures into the trade deadline, because it's not like he's got a humongous contract, but the Cardinals do have him under control through next season. And then there's a team option for 2025 that is a reasonable price. I would think that he would have appeal because even though he's struggling here, he's got such a good track record that I think the teams would feel pretty good about taking a chance on him. Also knowing that if it works out and maybe they use him properly, maybe they get him to use the different kind of pitch sequencing, which I think is a problem for him. They could walk into something where they'd have quite a piece for the stretch run, but also next season.
He's a guy I would think a lot of people would look at and go, we can fix that. We can get him back to where they were. And I'm not putting him in this category, but similar situation to what the Brewers did with Hader last year. It's a guy who has value, has had success, and somebody still has control for him for next year. I think that would be, like you said, his name hasn't been thrown out there in all these stories that have been written, but if I'm looking for a reliever and we know how valuable they are when it comes to this time of year and into the playoffs, I'd be knocking on the door about him.
Yeah, I don't think they'd get a jackpot, but they might get a pretty nice return because teams are pretty hungry for relievers. And he's accustomed to pitching in, late innings, high leverage. And again, he's in a rut with the Cardinals, but they're starting pitching so bad, and the starting pitching puts up a huge load of pressure on the bullpen. And you keep running them out there under less than ideal circumstances. Eventually there's going to be some cracks, and I think that's what's happened to Gallegos. So I'm looking forward to seeing if his name becomes more prominent, because we know Jordan Hicks' name is prominent. And later I'm going to go through these things where We look at some trades that would match who the Cardinals are offering now, trades that actually happened in recent years. And I was saying earlier that it's not a real encouraging thing when you look at it. Now, that doesn't mean it'll turn out the same way. It doesn't mean the Cardinals can't exceed expectations, but I was kind of bummed out after
I was
reading who some of these other teams got for similar pitchers is what I'm trying to say, you know. How about if Paulie DeYoung has more trade value than we think? R.J. Anderson, who will be on the show tomorrow, R.J. Anderson at CBSSports.com noted that the best available shortstop on the market is Paul DeYoung. People can laugh. I don't really care. He's very good defensively. He's still slugging well over 400. He's been worth about a win and a half in terms of wins above replacement. A team could do worse. He's above average hitter, not by much, but he's done a good job. And at the very least, you know he's going to play really good defense for you if you are interested in him. And he will hit for some power. You know, those guys, everyone assumes there's like 900 shortstops that can do that. That's not true. Hey, Paul DeYoung, even now, has better offensive numbers overall than Trey Turner this year, but people don't want to accept that.
Trey's been scuffling.
Yeah, I mean, he's well below average. At least Paulie's a little above average, you know, so it's interesting how that goes.